Hi, some thoughts on the context for class on Thursday. We're going to be focusing on the Comanche response to the evolution of the New World in North America. In 1706, the Comanche entered the historical record. Spanish officials noted the arrival on the grasslands of the southern Great Plains, a group of native peoples identified as Comancia, a word designating related yet different by their Ute allies. In this document, they're scarcely distinguishable from the Ute or the Yutas, the Equestrian Indians who dominated the plains at the time of the Spanish reconquest of New Mexico. Both were Numic-speaking peoples with an origin in the Sierra Nevadas. These bonds helped the Comanche newcomers to forge alliances with their distant kin who had preceded them onto the Great Plains. Despite the modesty of their arrival, the exodus of Comanche people onto the southern Great Plains is one of the key turning points in American history. It was a commonplace migration, not dissimilar to the displacements and migrations that dominated the history of the native New World and that we've discussed in previous classes during this first century of encounter with European colonies in North America. In the end, however, this migration would become a full-blown colonizing project that would rival the history of any European colony in terms of its political, economic, and cultural repercussions and significance. And the repercussions were that the Comanche migration set off a half-century-long war with the Apaches, resulting in their displacement and the relocation of Apacheria, a massive political power in their own right. Succinctly, the Comanche invasion of the Southern Plains was the longest, the bloodiest conquering campaign ever seen in the American West. Now, as a prologue to the Comanche's arrival on the Southern Plains, we'll discuss their origins. Before entering Euro-American consciousness as a horse-mounted rulers of the southern grasslands, the Comanche were members of the Eastern Shoshone people who called themselves Numanu. They hunted bison on foot at the northern western margins of the plains. The Comanches left a homeland in present-day Nevada-Idaho region and flourished as plain hunters in the 17th century until they were pushed off the plains by the Sioux moving into the west from the east. They retreated into the Great Basin. You can kind of follow the timeline on the screen. This is the sort of region would now be the edge of the Rocky Mountains above Arizona and in the Nevada region. And when the Shoshone people re-entered the Great Plains, they entered following the Pueblo Revolt. The Shoshone-speaking people allied with other Shoshone-speaking people, the Utes, around 1700, and they quickly acquired Utes from the Utes horses. At the dawn of their arrival in the 18th century, the Apache are the other significant military and economic players on the Great Plains. The Apaches have become dominant in the Southwest. At the edge of the Pueblos, they basically took the resources of the plains, raiding for slaves, raiding for buffalo meat, buffalo hides, and they traded with the Pueblos, who were horticulturalists, as we discussed in previous classes. This sort of trade between horticultural production in the west, in the Pueblos, but also in the east, with the Caddo-speaking peoples that we read about a few units ago with the article of Juliana Barr, who were at the edge of the Great Plains at the base of the Mississippi River. This is the trade network that the Comanche themselves displaced. They essentially, mounted on horseback, take advantage of the fact that the Apache over time, and because of their long-standing relationship with both the Pueblo peoples and the Caddo peoples, have begun to adopt a bit of their agricultural technology living in these river basins that you see here, and they alternated between raiding, hunting, and farming. This more sedentary lifestyle, however, made them vulnerable to the Comanche, who were warlike and willing to take them on, and able to retreat because they had no permanent homeland. Now, the end result of this was that the Comanches ended up becoming the principal raiders and traders of the southern Great Plains, and they alternate between patterns of hunting and raiding and trading. The raiding and trading actually vacillated between Spanish in New Mexico and the Spanish established in Texas. These new alliances were supplemented with increasing trade with French-connected Indians who were operating out of the Mississippi Valley in river systems that connected that you can see here. Specifically, the alliance with the Pawnee, who were operating along the Arkansas River. This is river stringing out here, tracing through the Great Plains to the Mississippi. This contact with the Pawnee put the Comanche in touch with people who had a surplus of trade goods, particularly weapons. The Spanish refused to trade guns with the Comanche. They also refused to trade guns with the Apache. And so the Comanche connections with French trading Indians provided them with guns at a time when the Apache did not have any guns. This also led to the spread of horse culture as Comanche became the principal traders and raiders, producing horses that they then traded with Plains Indians who lived all along up the western side of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. And this trade process between raiding and trading and hunting with the French allied Indians helped disseminate horses into the West. Now, here you can see the division of the Comanche that emerges. As the Comanche expand east and north, another division of the Comanches move into Texas. From this new base, they begin to raid in the south for additional horses. Texas-based Comanches call themselves the Buffalo Eaters, based in the Red River Valley. The western bands designate themselves as the Root Eaters and the Timber People, and they occupied a core territory on the upper Canadian and Arkansas rivers. These two divisions, the ones in the west, become specialized as traders, so they emphasized in their relationship with Spanish people trading, particularly with New Mexico. And these links were crucial because the Comanches in the east, in Texas and in the Red River region, raided increasingly deep into Mexican territory for mules, horses, and other livestock. They would then trade with western bands who would take those livestock and trade them both with the French and then later with Americans expanding into the southwest, or rather into the southeast, and also trading back stolen livestock with Spanish colonists in New Mexico. As I said, they also began trading extensively with Plains Indians and are responsible for the dissemination of the horse up and down the plains. Now, the impact of the Comanche dominance was a monopoly on Spanish markets. The Comanche traded exclusively, controlled almost exclusively, so they became exclusive controllers of trade between New Mexican colonies and French colonies, so they dominated the contact with Europeans on the southern Great Plains, choking out all other native peoples, making them both dominant economically but also dominant militarily. The result was actually a bit of a change in terms of the Comanche lifestyle. They became associated with horses. The average per capita horse ownership among the Comanche were 3 horses per person. That's man, woman, and child. It's far more horses than you need in order to pursue a sort of seasonal hunting strategy, equestrian hunting strategy. But this also changed the social hierarchy within the Comanche. As hunter-gatherers, they tended to have a more egalitarian society, but as the Comanche grew in horse wealth, and in fact horse trading, horse mules in particular, became the mainstay of their economy. As they acquired more and more horses, they began to have status inequities. You had horse-rich people. You also had increasing demands for labor, which meant more raiding for taking captives in Mexico, and also Anglos in Texas, who were incorporated often as young men who would keep track and be used as labor for managing the horse herds. This new migration ended up having, as I said, a profound impact on North American history in the sense that the Comanche became both the people who facilitated American migration. At and around the time of removal, Americans moving to the southeast desperately needed draft animals, horses, cows, etc., mules in particular, and they got these through the Comanche, who created, as I said, raiding relationships into New Mexico to pull out these animals. So they simultaneously weakened the Mexican state and facilitated the western expansion of the American state. This actually contributed to the rapid success of the United States when the Mexican-American War happened. This excess in trading also resulted in the fact that the Comanche ended up straining the ecological capacity of the Great Plains as they acquired more and more horses. They eventually were not able to thread the needle ecologically speaking and overtaxed the carrying capacity of the southern Great Plains, so that their quick collapse politically and economically in part derived from their massive military and economic success. We'll talk more in class.